Elon Musk is leaving DOGE, and everybody is happy about it.
Welcome to the All Future Podcast, where we talk all things Apple, tech, AI, and more throughout the week. Today we're joined in studio by Andrew.
Woo! How's it
Yeah.
going?
Good. How about you?
Good. So just full transparency, this is our second time talking about this because we had a little audio incident going on, but that means we're going to be extra prepared to talk to
That's
you guys
true.
about it.
Yeah. And any controversial statements we said in the first one.
We can just edit all those out, you know?
Yeah, of course. Not that this entire topic
It's
is
going to be pretty
extremely
controversial.
Yeah.
Yeah, comment how controversial it is already. You probably already are, you know?
Yeah, you're probably already upset that we even said the name Doge, right?
Or Elon Musk to begin with.
Mhm.
And we know he's a controversial figure. He should be, you know? He's the richest man in the world. You don't want, people to be getting to those things unless they're actually contributing to the planet. And today he let us know that he's stepping down from DOGE. Not today, but soon. And he's stepping down because he's going to complete his goal of getting to $1 trillion in cuts.
Or to be fair, he says they're on track to do so.
On track.
Yes. But the exact quote here is that I think we will have accomplished most of the work required to reduce the deficit by $1 trillion within that time frame. And I think it's about a 130-day time frame, and then they're hoping that it wraps up with sometime in May.
Yeah, so I'm a finance nerd. I've been hearing economists talk about trying to get to this 3% of GDP is how much a country should be spending every year ratio. We've been talking about that for 15 years since I've been listening to podcasts about finance. And everyone's trying to sound the alarm saying, like, the interest is going to rise, like, our payments on these things are going to rise. And this is the year that the interest on all our government payments is bigger than our defense budget now. Just the interest. That's the interest we're paying on all the stuff, our previous spending. So this is really tying our arms behind our back as a country because most of our money now is going to just interest payments on this thing. So you could argue that this wasn't done correctly or not all day. And I will totally, that's totally fair that we just cut this stuff too fast and that the programs that we cut are things that we actually need. But the fact that we didn't need it, we needed this more than anything. And I don't think if it wasn't done this quickly that it ever would have happened because then we just get caught up in our bureaucratic red tape. So believe what you will about what happened, but we really probably needed to cut that $1 trillion out of spending to make sure that we as a country don't go bankrupt, or we just start spending so much on our interest payments that, now we don't have money for Social Security. Now we don't have money for these other things that we could be spending money on.
And yeah, he said, unless this exercise is successful, the ship of America will sink. That's why we're doing it. And I think, people would agree, like, when you really look at the economics of it, it's pretty obvious that spending that much on interest and all of these things is just not a good path. It's just kind of a never-ending, perpetuating cycle, and if we don't do something about it, it's very bad. But yeah, the whole thing is, like these kind of protesters, Fed workers say strong, no more Doge, because people getting fired and losing their jobs out of the blue from Elon Musk, who's kind of known to just, even
Gut
at Tesla,
companies.
just gut it and come into X or Twitter at the time, just gut it and all this stuff. And then he's doing the same to federal workers who have had these jobs for decades at this point in some cases and have this security. And then all of a sudden he comes in and wipes it out. Definitely very understandable frustration with all of that. But yeah, it's like, how could this be done? I don't know. I think it could have been done smoother, but regardless, it seems exciting that he might be stepping down from this in May because at least the temperature can lower, I hope, or his controversy can lower a little bit. And then people who like him will be happy because maybe he's a little more focused at the companies that they support. People that hate him will probably be happy because he's not at least seeming to be in charge of a lot.
Yeah, so since he's been in this position, I feel like I thought it was just me because I was reading a lot of Tesla news for the Tesla channel, that, my whole feed has just turned into Elon Musk, Doge, and Tesla being an awful company. And we know because we cover it so much that nothing at Tesla has changed. This has been the plan for like 5 years, and they have not moved from the plan one bit in the entire 5 years. It's been the exact same thing the whole time. So it's been so weird to see so much news pile up my whole Reddit feed, and I follow like technology and Apple products and all these other things. So I have a full feed that has become nothing but stuff about Elon Musk and
Hmm.
Tesla being an awful company.
Yeah.
And then those things being put in the like there's actually like a Tesla sucks forum or and then there's a forum called Tesla Lounge and stuff like that. Like there's literal places where you're supposed to like put stuff negative about Tesla.
Hmm.
And then in all of them, all of them is just like negative Tesla content all the way around. And I thought it was just me, so I turned it on anonymous browsing and I'm like, okay, what does just a normal feed look like? And the normal feed is also just stuff about Elon Musk and Trump and and I'm like,
Yeah.
man, like the temperature on this, it's someone is pressing on the gas as far as like the media just deciding that this is what we're going to talk about right now. It's so much so that it just feels like it's like a viral moment, like,
Hmm.
Ray Gun at the Olympics or something like that. We get this just viral moment of Elon being a part of the government and everyone just hating it.
Yeah. And I mean, the biggest reason I think is the fact that it's a billionaire doesn't help. No matter what, this person wouldn't be popular, but it's already a billionaire who's not extremely popular amongst a lot of people. And then, of course, the speed that they've done this at. So he said, in the context of the government, we're moving like lightning. And yeah, people don't want to see that, of course. But the Tesla thing has been pretty fascinating to watch, and to watch the sentiment completely shift on them from people who were like diehard supporters to now like hating the product and saying the product is terrible. Because yeah, the product hasn't changed. If anything, actually, they just in this cycle they're releasing the new Model Y, which is quite a big improvement over the best-selling car in the world, which it was the last 2 years in a row. Um, and so it's like, yeah, it's just so weird to watch it and see stuff getting reported that isn't based on facts or like data. It's just kind of based on feeling and sentiment,
Well,
you
they're
know?
fact-ish. I think this next one is based on the thing it reported was a fact.
Hmm.
It just was a bad fact.
Yeah. So this is a new article that came out that says 67% of Americans would not consider buying a Tesla, new poll says. And wow, listen, like
67%, that's a lot.
that's a lot of that's a lot of Tesla people or people not buying a Tesla.
Look how good that infographic is.
I mean, look
It's
at
so
this.
professional.
Even
Definitely not made by AI, but
yeah, so you got 67%. That's a big piece of the pie. But you scroll down and it's like, for me at this point, my biggest question with any of this, whether it's good or bad for Tesla, is how many people did they poll? How big were the results? Was this randomized? Did they ask them any other questions like to narrow down like, oh, we interviewed a bunch of people who hate electric cars in general, and it's 67% of them or whatever. But no, in this case, it's 1,677 U.S. adults were polled, which that's not a good enough sample
no.
size, right?
Not at all.
Yeah. And so this survey is really particularly about those people. And yeah, 67% were a no, but they're also not saying 13% were a not sure. But still, I mean, 67% as a hard no is pretty intense. But, it's that whole thing that we're talking
Yeah,
about.
that doesn't feel like facts. If you know stuff about the United States, certain, not even states, because like California is a car state, but it's because Los Angeles, San Diego, sometimes San Francisco, but San Francisco has better public transit than us. We're car cities. Like you
Mhm.
cannot get around in LA and San Diego and, some of these places without a car. Whereas you can in New York, you can in San Francisco or whatever. Florida is also a huge car state. You have to have a car to get around in Florida. We have these huge sprawling suburbs and you have to you have to drive through traffic to get in to go to work, and you need a car to live in these things. You don't need a car to live in New York City. You can get around. They have a great train system. There's other cities across the country with great train systems and great public transportation that are just not as big car markets. And then people like, Texas, even with Austin, are not going to be places that buy EVs in general before any of this happened. They might support everything Elon Musk does, but they're just not big EV people.
Mhm.
And maybe for not even reasons you think, like,
Yeah.
okay, you grew up with trucks or whatever, but like, okay, there's not consistent enough, there's no charging stations around here. You have no idea why someone wouldn't want an EV. It's not like asking a question of like, do you want a gas car? Because like, there's infrastructure for gas cars. There's a million different brands of gas cars. There's,
Hmm.
and like, do you want a Ford or whatever? Like, do that poll to your, 1,000 people and see what you get back. You'll
Yeah.
probably get the same answers or whatever.
Hmm.
It's just, and we were talking about the German poll that they did.
Yeah.
So there was a German poll that came out recently that said, and this was 2 months ago, that said, oh, okay, in Germany, 90% of Germans say they would never buy a Tesla. And no one credited the source. The source was just some random online poll. And they used this random online poll and says 90% of Germans won't buy a Tesla. But well, the poll was ongoing.
Hmm.
And so in 1 month, the poll swung in the exact opposite direction. And now 90% of Germans will buy
Yeah.
Teslas and 10. Well, what does that tell me? It just tells me that this whole poll is worthless.
Yeah.
Like, you shouldn't be listening to this poll at all.
Hmm.
If it could swing that much in 1 month, that's not a good
Yeah.
representation of Germans.
And I saw it on both sides. I saw the people that hate Tesla quoting it at a specific time that was convenient, and then the people who love Tesla quoting it the other way. I think someone was even saying like sales are through the roof because look at how this sentiment has changed. And it's like none of that is accurate. And then yeah, you could vote in this poll anywhere in the world. You didn't have to be German.
Yeah.
I could have just gone on there and voted. Some people thought there were bots that like
Of
a bot
course,
attack that
how
went to
easy
flip
is
it the other way. And so it's just bad data no matter what your conclusion is.
Yeah, polls are weird these days. It's so hard to figure out what's going on.
Hmm.
Another thing I'm seeing all the time is these articles about like people who don't understand anything about these companies talking about tariffs.
Hmm.
It's been my new thing to go like send, in the text thread with Ryan and go, they're reporting this as fact. This is ridiculous. And so it's companies saying that, oh, here's how much Tesla's going to be affected by tariffs. Here's how much all these car companies are going to be affected by tariffs in the United States. And what happens is they sort of claim that like, oh, the EU is going to be screwed over by these American tariffs. So like, not only, okay, but that assumes that we're going to export that Tesla from the United States to Europe
Which they're not going to do.
because
I'll
they have
update
their
you.
own company in
They're
Germany.
they're extremely localized with everywhere that they ship their cars. They have a Berlin factory. They also have a Shanghai factory that makes cars as well for European countries. So they've set themselves up in that way to bring down cost, but then it also protects them from these things. So yeah, that wouldn't occur.
We are in a global economy, and in the global economy, you have to protect yourself from tariffs because you know they're going to be there, and you want to make sure that the people of that country are invested in your product too. So
Hmm.
even a ton of foreign auto manufacturers assemble their cars in the United States to some degree and have plants. And so the idea of the tariffs or what they could do,
Hmm.
is that when these people see the tariffs, we've already seen an investment from Hyundai to start investing more in their American plants. And so these companies aren't stupid. They'll just, what's the cheapest way for me to do this now that this tariff is in place? And they're going to adjust to that way of doing those things. But right now, you see someone, like, here's the article.
Yeah. So this has been in the plan already, but Hyundai is planning for a $7.6 billion Georgia plant. I think it's a lot for EVs specifically. And then this helps them dodge the tariff, they're saying. And there is a quote from the CEO saying this plant couldn't come at a better time because definitely all the cars that we would produce here are going to be exempted from any tariffs. So yeah, it's an interesting thing because there's so much negative press around tariffs. And it is funny because it doesn't seem like Trump has completely understood how tariffs work.
He doesn't.
Yeah. But then it's like when you break down what this is promoting at a base level, it seems like it's a good thing because it makes things like this Hyundai thing happen where you want your cars to be manufactured in the United States with mostly localized parts as well, which makes you bring everything down in cost in the US so that it's competitive. But of course, there's all of the angles that this is favoring Tesla because of Elon being Trump's friend. But
That's the point.
they've been working on this for years.
that's the point to point out this Hyundai plant that's already in the United States and was already in the work. Like,
Mhm.
is it favoring Tesla, or are all these companies going to scramble to then start putting their companies back in the United States?
Mhm.
Does it favor Ford? Does it favor GM? How much of their assembly is happening in China or in other
Yeah.
places and shipping back into the United States? Because even the backbone of the American economy, auto manufacturers have shipped a lot of their stuff out to China,
Mhm.
and then they're just assembled in the United States. So those pieces, not 100% of their car is going to be made somewhere else, but that percentage of the car, only that percentage of the car is the thing that's going to be affected by the tariff. So
Mhm.
if your F-150 is $100,000 and 25K of that car, of that cost was, manufactured in a different country that's going to be affected by that tariffs, then just that quarter of the car is going to go up by that 25% and be passed on to the consumer,
Mhm.
not the whole $100,000. There's
Yeah.
another tweet that went out that said, like, here's the car companies where are 100% made in the United States, or like, here's how much of the percentage is. And like, that's not a good measure of it either, because it's not by part. It by part.
Yeah.
What is a car? What are you talking about? Car parts? Are you talking about a car? And so all these people with like literally no experience in this world are reporting on these things like they really know what they're talking
Mhm.
about. And so, well, I don't 100%, but I will tell you that they don't. And
Yeah.
don't be listening to them, especially when investing, because like if you're an average American and you just see this, like, well, all these other car companies are going to go up except Tesla and
Mhm.
Rivian for being made in the United States as well. Okay, then they might do something greedy like just price it in even though they don't have tariffs going on. And just
Mhm.
because you assume that that price increase is going to be there, they'll do it anyways. That's what they did during the inflation cycle of just
Mhm.
normalized goods. And just, oh, well, people think it's going to go up. So let's just inch that, inch it up a little more anyways, because that's where consumer expectation is,
Yeah.
So be careful of these things. Don't believe everything you read. Like, really try to find smart people talking about this and don't just read headlines, because
Mhm.
there's a ton of misreporting, bad math, people who don't know what they're talking about saying they do know what they're talking about, and people just flat out guessing, right? Like,
Mhm.
uh, don't listen to those people. Wait for it to happen. See what happens. Wait and see.
Yeah. This whole thing is very interesting though, because yeah, it does seem like it, even with all those numbers and the fact that Tesla does source some of their parts from China for their final assembly in the United States, which by the way, 100% of their cars that they make or that they deliver in the U.S. are made in the U.S. But it seems like they still have some Chinese parts and stuff, and there's different analysts that have said it's 15% of their cars or 20% or whatever, and then like I even did like a rough math equation, like increasing 15% of the car by 25%. What do you end up with? But it's like that's nowhere correct because you don't know how much those pieces are. Because the battery was made in the U.S., that could be the vast majority
Yeah, exactly. Of the
of the
cost.
cost. Yeah. And so you're only seeing a 25% increase on the smallest parts that came from China that were already very cheap or whatever. So, yeah, it's very complex. But all this to say, Tesla, it's a crazy world out there for them right now. And Elon Musk, and maybe things are going to slow down or lower as far as intensity come May. But he did just make a pretty big move over at X, which is that XAI just acquired X. So
Ooh.
XAI is his AI company, that made Grok, and that's built into X. But they until now they were separate companies, but they acquired X in an all stock transaction. The combination values XAI at $80 billion and X at $33 billion. So essentially, it seems this insulates X in a few ways, and then I've heard Tesla investors saying it insulates Tesla as well, so that Elon doesn't have to like borrow against Tesla shares again to if X were to go down or something like that.
Yeah, I think too, it might be just a way to make those people who invested with him to buy Twitter whole. So he could just get out of that with those people.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine Elon made a bunch of panic phone calls when he was buying Twitter, going like, hey, if we could put enough money together, I can buy this. We can, if he really did think it was about free speech, if that's something that you believe, like we could try to bring free speech back to this platform and try to turn the tide of the censorship on the internet. That was what he said he wanted to do. And then I'm sure at the end of that became, I will make sure you don't lose money on this.
Mhm.
And people had to trust him. And I think this is what he's trying to do with it is get it into XAI, which is a much more speculative company than X. I feel like most social media categories in general are sort of like maxed out. We
Mhm.
have X, we have Facebook, we have, Instagram, we have Snapchat, we have everything else underneath TikTok, right? Those are all pretty maxed out as far as a social media company. It's really hard to start a new social media company, and it's really hard to see like massive growth in a new social media company. So much so that all those companies I mentioned, except maybe TikTok, are investing in their own versions of AI and investing in making other products.
Mhm.
Except Snapchat, which is possibly going to be the one that like we actually see not go bankrupt, but like just really plateau, as a
Mhm.
tech company.
Yeah. The whole X and XAI thing is interesting because it's like doesn't it feels like, oh, there's Grok, there's this AI assistant built into this platform, but it's also like more functional than other ones like the built-in AI and stuff that feels very tacked on to Instagram and stuff. And it's proven itself in third-party testing, Grok has, to be quite good against things like ChatGPT. And then it's included in a subscription to X, so it maybe gets you a little more benefit than just a ChatGPT subscription from OpenAI. But yeah, the whole AI thing is such an interesting world, but everyone wants it right now and everyone's investing. So it seems like a much safer bet, like you're saying. And X can be kind of insulated, and then whatever the investors were for that, they're like, yay, cool. Now our investment paid off because now we're a part of this whole AI startup at this point that's already doing big things very quickly.
Yeah, it'll be cool to see what this actually does. I mean, it seemed like they were doing this the whole time. Like, why was Grok built into X when there's already a Grok app and
Mm-hmm.
these things don't need to be built in together? So it was kind of the writing was on the wall. And to make X like an everything app, it would need to have something like AI in it. But really, we haven't seen them like build the AI into the app yet. You can use it
Mm-hmm.
against the app, right? But like you can't use Grok and go search X and find me 10 tweets about this point from people in the US government or something like that. Like very specific search queries and being able to use it for that. And so it'll be really interesting to see them like try to fully integrate these things into each other. Or even something on Instagram, like find me like 10 influencers in this niche with these amount of followers. Like you can't search by those parameters. And only with AI might you be able to find things like that. So we'll see if they actually start building these things and integrating them together besides just having them available next to the app that you're using.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a lot going on in the world of X and Tesla and SpaceX and Elon Musk and Doge and all of this stuff. But I think the overarching thing is that a lot remains to be seen because there's always a lot of questions as to what is going on with this stuff, what will actually come to fruition, what won't, and what not. So at least it seems that in May things may ease up a little bit, but maybe before then we'll get even more updates about some new thing that many people will be worried about and we can stress about.
Yeah, definitely. We could stress about Tesla's normal problems that we have talked about over and over and over again
Hmm.
on the Tesla channel and trying to see if they can actually accomplish the things they say they can accomplish or if Elon is just blowing his 10-year, 20-year FSD smoke on us, like
Hmm.
he could be. So it's tough. And I believe that these people believe that they're doing as much as they can in these things and trying to give us the right timelines and things like that. But it's sort of part of being a good CEO to tell half truths about those things and sell people on a dream. Look at Apple Intelligence and
Yeah.
everything that's going on there.
I was gonna say that's a great example of like, man, they're not getting it right at
Yeah.
all.
And so
And
there's a
so,
lot of companies who aren't getting it right out there that we're giving a lot of grace to,
hmm.
and being like, well, Apple's still cool. Like they're sort of not, I don't want to say in bed with the Trump administration, but a lot of Silicon Valley, like, bent the knee to the Trump administration because I think there was a lot of, antitrust regulation coming their way from the Biden administration more so than there had been before. Google, uh, you know, they want to split Google up into 4 different companies in antitrust lawsuits with like Android and Chrome and all
Hmm.
these different pieces, YouTube, so I think the Trump administration might have just said, "You guys do what you want and make the company make the American people money and make money for your companies," and so all of them, have have at least not outwardly been against Trump when I think a lot of people thought they would be.
Hmm. Yeah, it definitely felt like Apple. It felt odd to see it from Apple and other companies like them. A little surprising, but then when you think about it, it's like, oh, it's not that surprising.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it makes sense from a business perspective. So, anyways, Doge may be ending soon because potentially they have achieved their goal, but well, we will see.
I'd be happy to see something different in my Reddit feed for a change, for
Dude.
God's sake.
Seriously.